go ahead and just jump right in. Right. So before we get to the part that we all love, which is what we've got in the works, what's coming in Journyx products, we're going to take one more look at what we did in 2019. Some of you may have missed some of the big happenings that Lance alluded to, and we just want to make sure that everyone knows what's available right now in Journyx 12. After we review, we'll move on to the product roadmap, and we'll look at broad themes for the next 18 to 24 months, and then we'll also look at some of the specifics of what we're doing now and throughout the year. And then finally, we'll take a look at the software lifecycle and how you can get involved and help us to build better products. So 2019 was a big year for product initiatives. As Lance mentioned in his previous presentation, Journyx has been accelerating in a variety of areas, and product development and innovation is included in that acceleration. It's been very exciting for me managing products to be involved in this effort. In 2019, we completed a major interface and user experience overhaul for the Journyx core product. And we pulled in professional designers and usability testers. We had internal and external working groups, and eventually the entire company got involved to successfully complete the effort. And so the culmination of the project was Journyx 12. Now, Journyx 12 was released to cloud customers in July, and it included a focus on three what we called hero flows, and that was time entry, manager approvals, and manager dashboard reporting. And I'm sure you can imagine why we picked those and how important those are to our customers' day-to-day usage of Journyx. Now, the entire system got some love and updates to make the interface more modern, but the major user experience improvements were focused on those three hero flows. Journyx 12 was the beginning of a process, so it's not done. It's the beginning of a process that will continue to deliver major user experience improvements throughout the 12 series. Oh yay, these screens have not always been loading properly. Glad to see they did. So in coordination with the user experience improvements for both time entry and approvals, we also introduced a new mobile app for Journyx. And that was also towards the end of 2019. The goal for the app, the initial goal for the app, was to make it as quick and easy to enter time as possible. Now, some of you have been with us for a while. You may know we were not very happy with the technology that the previous mobile app was based on. It was both hard to maintain and also hard to extend and add new features to. So as a result, we switched. And so what we have now is a native app strategy, and we built two completely new apps, one for iOS and one for Android. And while the first version of the new app started with just a simple feature set for basic time entry and approvals, we are now rapidly extending the app to support more configurations and add all the wonderful features that you guys love to use for your time entry and time, expense, custom, etc., and approvals. So a little bit later in this presentation, when we get to the things that are coming soon in mobile, we'll talk about what some of those things look like and when they're coming. Finally, towards the end of 2019, in our November release of the 12 series, we started giving our releases names to make them a little easier to identify quickly. So the November release is called Endeavor, and it is our most current version of both Journyx and PX core product. In Endeavor, we also kicked off a new feature theme for major improvements to Journyx reporting. So just like the user experience theme, the reporting expansion theme is going to continue throughout the 12 series and beyond. The Endeavor release includes a modernization of the interface for report output. So when you run your reports, that output that you see, the report output has been updated to look similar to the Journyx 12 series. And it also has great tools like pagination and drill down in the report itself so that you can see a pretty summary report, or you can drill down and you can show all the details in a list. It also includes dynamic report filters that allow you to run a report, slice and dice it on the fly. So I want to change my filters and see something a little bit different. but not change the underlying report. Prior to Endeavor, of course, you had to go into your report settings and change the report settings or copy it out and create another report. Now you can change up your report based on what you want to see and leave that base report alone. Endeavor also included additional security options for API keys, and that's important because they can be used to allow you to securely connect to third-party tools like BI and reporting tools. And so again, it helps you with all of your reporting needs. So now that we've looked at some of the really exciting stuff that we delivered last year, let's take a look at what we have in the works now. Plenty of more exciting stuff, both now, this year, and into the future. So what you see here is our roadmap, just the roadmap themes. And our roadmap themes are organized into time buckets. So you have now, next, and later. Everything in the now bucket is currently committed to the next public release. In 2019, we also standardized the release schedule for Journyx and PX releases. So going forward, we have 2 feature releases each year, one in early May and one in early November. So what you're looking at here, the now bucket today, is being worked for the May 2020 release of Journyx. And the May 2020 release will be called Greenwich. So today we have Endeavor. In May, we'll have Greenwich, and we'll continue to have releases each November and May going forward. Mobile releases, at least for right now, will be delivered on a more frequent basis than that semi-annual schedule for core product releases. We are planning to deliver several mobile releases with a series of features and improvements through that May delivery of Greenwich. So our now bucket for mobile includes a series of releases that will be going on, that will be issued gradually all leading up until May. And we'll look at more detail. So the themes are broad themes. We'll have a little bit more detail on mobile in a bit. I know everybody wants it. You will also see some new products and add-ons in the roadmap themes. While these products may not be technically dependent on a core product release, you can expect them to be planned for something like a no later than release based on the core product timing. So in the now bucket is expected to be delivered no later than May 2020. The next is expected by November, and the later bucket is later, so later this year or early next year. One thing I'd like to note about the next and later buckets. I'm sure you understand this, but I always want to mention it. The themes and priorities under next and later are always subject to change. These are the themes we've established as important to you and your business based on your feedback. But things happen, and priorities change, yours and mine alike. And so the roadmap is a living document that we use to engage you in discussions about what you need most. And that's both today and in the future. Later in this presentation, we'll cover specific ways that you can be a part of the Journyx roadmap process. So let's take a look at some of the specific items that are included in the roadmap themes. And we'll start with, why not, what we're working on right now. The Greenwich release will continue the improvements and expansion of that internal reporting, the internal reporting capabilities that are in both Journyx and PX. The May release includes a new report format, primarily for timesheet reporting, called the grid format. Now, I really need you guys to stop printing your browser screens so that we can do more exciting things with the UI. So don't expect us to constantly support a printable grid in your browser. We need you to move on to reports, and that's exactly what this grid format is for. So it's designed to give you everything you need to print your timesheet, or maybe print a batch of others' timesheets, in the way that you need it. The sheets can also be saved electronically if you're so lucky that those who regulate you don't need paper copies. But if you still need to print them, they're very printable, and that's the idea, sheet by sheet. The main point of grid format is to show your data organized into user sheets. And so the concept is similar to what we've offered in DCA tools for printable timesheets. Maybe some of you have used that before, but this format is standard, has more options to filter, and gives you more control over the data that you include in the report. So not exactly new technology, but moving everyone away from print screen on the browser. Ooh, apologies. Let me back up. Greenwich also includes a new chart type with options to either show multiple data points for comparison or add multiple data points together visually to kind of show a cumulative effect. This may not make a whole lot of sense until you see the pictures, and they will be available to you through your account managers very, very soon. These new comparison charts are especially useful for comparing estimates to actuals for things like project work and costs and PX, and they will eventually replace the older charts that are currently offered in PX reports. So those of you who are running reports in PX, you may be familiar with the old school, very old school Excel looking charts. So these new charts will have the information you need now to replace some of those. The new chart type is equally useful for Journyx users who don't have PX because it's about comparing data visually or looking at how data stacks cumulatively. So a lot of different ways to use that. For our PX module, we're also working on adding more flexibility for booking resources and then reporting on and planning for future capacity to work projects. It's pretty common for project managers to want to know what resources are available for a future project. But it's also fairly common for an organization to not know who specifically will be available and assigned then to do that future work. We know somebody on this team or somebody with this skill is going to do the work, but we don't know who's going to do this work 3 to 6 months out. So project managers need a way to book resources for confirmed project work in the future, but not necessarily assign named individuals to those tasks. And the reason that they need to make these bookings now, before the work is ready to be done, is in part to be sure that future resource availability gets updated to reflect their needs. I mean, they want to put a stake in the sand and say, hey, I'm going to need those resources in the future, and not let somebody else book them up. So Greenwich is offering new features to create resource teams and assign the teams to projects. And the teams can be organized by, like I said, skill or department or location. It's like pretty much, you're familiar with your user custom fields, pretty much any organizing attribute that you want to use. So the teams will then include a list of users that meet that criteria that you set. And then team availability is the aggregate of the availability of all the users on the team. So the team can then be assigned to future tasks that will allow people to see future capacity, even though no individual has yet been assigned to do the work. So the team capacity is incorporated there. This is, I think you can probably tell just from the description, it's a substantial feature with some really complex workflows. So we really look forward to pulling in PX customers or even those who are evaluating or considering PX over the next couple of months to provide some feedback and demo testing just so that we can make team assignments the best that it can be. In addition to our core product work, I mentioned this a few times and I'll mention it again, we are rapidly improving and expanding the features in the new mobile app. It started out fairly basic and we are working our way towards making it full featured. We have a release candidate right now that's in final phases of testing that includes support for custom entry and custom approvals. It also includes some usability improvements for one-click access to edit your entries. This release, which is called Journyx Mobile 12.1, is expected for delivery at the end of this month, so on February 28th. Now, as I mentioned, we are planning to deliver a couple more mobile releases to cover our now bucket through the end of May. So we'll be doing these almost monthly. After 12.1, our next priorities are getting mileage conversion back in expense entry. So right now, you have to convert your mileage yourself and put it in as an expense amount. We will get it back to the point where you can enter your mileage and have it converted based on your conversions in the Journyx system. We will also be adding support for allocation screens. And this is a screen where users are punching in and out or setting their in and out times with a clock. And so there's no punch capability in mobile right now, and we'll be getting that added in the next few months. We also have a good long list of critical usability improvements, and we'll be working those steadily. One area that we know needs some love is what we refer to as the date picker. Specifically, we want the screen where you create new entries to be smarter about what it defaults to based upon what you're viewing on your timesheet. I'll give a quick example. Right now, if you want to scroll back to last period in mobile and you want to see, did I get all my time entered for Friday of last week? So you go back to Friday, you see that you're missing something, you say, I need to add some time to Friday before I submit my sheet. So you click the plus button, and it pulls up a screen to add time, but it's not set to Friday, it's set to today. That's what it does, it defaults to today. So one of the things that we'll be doing is making it smarter. So if you're viewing Friday of last week and you click the plus button, it's going to show you Friday of last week to create an entry, and that way you stay kind of in the same workflow the whole time. Similarly, if you are viewing your expenses and you click on the plus button and it takes you to create time, we'll be fixing that, and you'll go to create expense. So just making that, the process, you don't have to choose the date twice or choose the type. It should be much easier and a little less confusing. As I said, we have usability feedback in our backlog, and we'll be adding these features in this series of releases. If you have anything that you'd like to add, please feel free to send along your comments to me or to support or to your account manager, anyone that you can find at Journyx. I do know for a fact that we have a conference attendee here today who would very much like us to show save time in decimal format rather than hours and minutes. So we've got that one. But we'll be working through this steadily to make sure that we kind of get everything in there that makes mobile worth your time. So in the next section, I've organized next and later kind of by theme. So it's a mix of next and later. We've ceased to go in a linear timeline. So some of these are slated for November, and some are planned for end of year or sometime next year. So starting with version 11, we introduced a feature called suggestions. The technology behind suggestions is intended to help your users fill out their timesheets based on the normal things they do on their computers and their devices and so on during their workday. Now, suggestions, it's worth mentioning, they do a lot more than simply import data from other systems. They take that data and they use automated intelligence to suggest, which is why it has the name it has, what your time entries should be. So over time, those suggestions get more and more accurate until eventually you can just save the suggestions on your timesheet and move along. Suggestions rely on access to source data from third-party systems. And when we introduced suggestions, we did so with a premium connection to Microsoft Exchange. So the Exchange connection allows users to pull in calendar events and tasks and auto-populate the timesheets with those. Now, like I said, it makes a suggestion, so they can review the suggestions and adjust any of their time entry selections, and those are the selections that you choose to put on their time entry screen. And they can adjust those selections where the engine didn't guess correctly. Then the suggestion engine then learns from the user changes and guesses more accurately in the future until eventually you're not really doing any correcting. We use Exchange suggestions here at Journyx, and my PS director is now so completely hooked on them that he told me he would not use the mobile app until I got them added to it. So once you realize the value of suggestions, it's actually pretty tough to go back to entering your time manually. So in order to move suggestions from something that's, something you trial or kind of a novelty to the indispensable tool for users that it is for my PS director, we are working on adding more valuable sources of information, because obviously it's most helpful if everything I work in is feeding into my timesheet. We're also making it easier to connect to those sources. The Exchange connection is awesome, but it does require your IT department. And then we're also providing tools to help end users try things out and really get the full use of suggestions to automate their time entry. Also, as you might have guessed, we will be offering suggestions in the mobile app so that I can get my PS director to use it. I mentioned earlier that we have continuing efforts around user experience and reporting and business intelligence. So these next two items are continuations of those themes. Lots of themes, really just a few, but anyway, these are two of our themes that we started in 2019. Unified time entry refers to the continuing work that we are doing toward a single interface that allows your users to just easily change between views for their different time entry use cases. Right now you have to assign a user a time entry screen and it does one thing, or you can assign them to a different one and it does another thing. But the idea here is that we give them access to all the views and they can choose to switch based on what they need to do. Today in the 12 series, we have a new summary time entry screen that simplifies the old grid view, but it still gives you access to drill down into details. In coming releases, we will be adding a project card view, and this helps users who want to see their time as it applies to projects, so they can see their time in project boxes. So for the project-based employees, that could be really helpful, especially if they're working kind of time-based assignments. We will also add a multi-purpose view for capturing in and out times. Now, when I say multi-purpose, I mean it could be for payroll data. So you may need to track, you may need to clock in and clock out when you start your day, when you end your day. But you could also be capturing in-out times in a different way. And what difference does it make which way you're doing? So you could be using those in and out times to track the start and stop of jobs. So every job is going to have an in and out time. So regardless of why you need to capture these in and out times, we're working on this screen that allows you to do all of it depending upon your needs, and the end users can simply track time in the way that works best for them. Analytics is also a key component of this dramatically improving our business intelligence move. There's more to be learned from your Journyx system than simply analyzing those numbers that you plug into the system. So incorporating analytics in the Journyx platform will allow you, initially at least, to look at basic usage data. But eventually, what we hope is that it will lead to the ability to highlight areas where there are opportunities to improve, and even better, make some suggestions on what those improvements might look like. All right. Now, efforts to improve business intelligence also include substantial new features for our internal reporting. So this includes more options to report on data over time or time phase data. We have some limited capabilities there, but there are some report types that are just waiting for the ability to look at trends over weeks, months, quarters, years, and so these are the types of things that we will be adding to our internal reporting. Another option that makes the internal reporting a lot more powerful is the ability to add custom calculated fields so that you can see data manipulated the way that you need it to report variances and percentages and other interesting things that would make your data more meaningful to you. Right now, you might be pulling that out to Excel and doing your markup, but we will be adding more robust options in the internal native reporting. Along with native reporting, planned for later this year, we're also planning to provide more robust tools for connecting to those third-party BI systems. And really, it's important. The important part is making it quick and easy. We do expect to update the current report link connector from Microsoft Excel. We're also planning to introduce a new report link connector for Power BI. As Carol showed us earlier, it is possible to manually connect to Power BI today and do all kinds of great things. While the details are still to be determined, both the update and the new product we expect to give you tools to make it easier to connect, and then also manage that data that you connect to Excel and Power BI. When I was talking about what we are working on now, I mentioned the new team assignments in PX. Project scenario planning is really just kind of the next phase for getting a complete picture of resource capacity and availability, and you use it for when you need to evaluate potential work in projects. So these aren't confirmed projects. These could be things you're considering doing. These could be projects that you are, that's pitching to a customer that you're selling and that you don't know, whether you'll get the deal or not. But the idea here is that you're looking at potential work. Team assignments allow you to block off future availability without naming specific individuals. Project scenario planning is going to allow you to block off potential work so that you can do different things like see if you have enough people to do it, see based on everybody's bookings when you might be able to do it, and then also possibly just determine whether or not you should do it at all. This feature includes a concept called soft booking, where you can insert and view these soft bookings along with confirmed team and individual assignments to see how the soft bookings affect your resource capacity. You can also adjust soft bookings or play around with soft bookings essentially to find the best resourcing to meet different needs like scheduling or profit goals or whatever any given project requires. The last thing that I'm going to mention today on Roadmap are our efforts for ERP integrations. We do have work going on this year to productize integrations for the Microsoft Dynamics 365 cloud-based ERPs. Some of you may know we work with the Dynamics on-prem variety of flavors, but this is specifically for cloud-based ERPs. Generally speaking, our customers will always get more value out of Journyx if the Journyx system is integrated with the business data from the with either ERP or accounting and HR systems. As a result, we are committed to expanding our off-the-shelf offerings for key business systems, and cloud business systems is where the biggest growth is. I'm sure you guys are completely aware of that. You're probably being pressured to update from on-prem to cloud systems all over the place. It is an enduring trend, and I believe Lance has mentioned it a few times today. So before I wrap up the roadmap presentation, I would like to talk briefly about how you guys can participate in developing and refining our roadmap. This particular picture shows the stages of the software development cycle. And at each stage, there are suggestions or potential ways for how to engage customers. This is just a general thing, not something that we created. But the idea here is that we don't simply talk with you guys at the beginning and the end, but we engage throughout the entire process. We don't want to simply ask you for your feature requests at the beginning and then toss a product version at you when we've finished and hope it works well for you. There are ways to participate in all parts of the life cycle, and we are working on ways to make it fast and easy for you to jump in and participate and sign up when you are able. So here you can see some of the specific ways that Journyx customers participate in our release lifecycle all throughout the cycle at different points. Some of these ways to participate are on demand, so you can just decide to do them, like submitting a feature request or filling out a customer survey, attending a webinar. There's kind of things that you decide to do or you see and decide to sign up for. Some you may do on a recurring basis, and we do the account management calls. It says AM calls up there. And so these are like your check-in calls with your account manager, and account managers do frequently call some of us in, including me, to talk about roadmap and to talk about your concern and product concerns right now. So we'll get involved in those account manager calls. Still others on this slide are special scheduled events. And so we've got project working groups, which are specific projects scheduled for, so for a particular item, and we'll have a schedule, and we might have to meet several times, but they're scheduled events. And then, of course, there's, for example, the customer conference, which is also a scheduled event that we should, the first annual, which means annually we'll be seeing you again here. There are always opportunities to participate in the roadmap and release process at Journyx. In general, just if you just want to know, well, how can I sign me up for everything, you can contact me, you can talk to someone in support, or you can talk to your account manager, and we'll help you find opportunities to sign up for anything that can help further your knowledge and allow you to provide us direct feedback on what interests you. Working groups can be especially powerful as they're limited to a small group of customers who work through detailed requirements and proposals to help Journyx build better solutions. But there are also general opportunities to sign up for webinars, sprint demos. This is something we'll start back up very soon, where you can come in and look at what we've done in the previous 2 weeks towards a given release. Those can be really fun. And then similar activities, webinars, etc. And all of those general opportunities will appear on the user community. If you don't know where it is, that's community.journyx.com. Your main points of contact should also receive emails, but if for some reason you're not the person who receives all the emails, by all means, you should check the community site for anything that you need. On the community site, you can also access announcements about upcoming releases. It's a great place to watch for what's coming soon. And it also will, after release, will include guides and documentation for the recent and past releases. So you can go and find out, well, what was in that release and do I really want it? You can also look specifically at the guides to see, well, how difficult is to turn that on, and that sort of thing. So you can really do some due diligence before you decide to update. And so the community is a great place for you to get started if you want to find ways to participate with us in our product development. Now, working groups, as interesting as they are, their participation has to be more limited. And so we often need to develop kind of a pool of people to invite as participants. And it's based a lot of times on like a specific module you use or a specific way that you use Journyx. So, so a lot of the invitations are, it's not that we don't want everyone to come. You may just not use the particular feature that we need some analysis and feedback on. And so that's, so we look at those, at what you guys do and decide who would be best to attend and then send out invitations. However, you guys are welcome to suggest topics for working groups. Right now, we're scheduling some groups for reporting and PX in the first quarter, but I'd welcome other topics anytime. So feel free to suggest if there's a topic that interests you, and then we can bring other customers together with similar uses or interests and hold a working group. I do want to mention that sometimes the working groups do more than just discuss and review proposals. They also help out with user acceptance testing to provide feedback on new features. And in effect, they get early access to new stuff, and they can help us determine what more needs to be done before we release new stuff to the world. So as with all things related to Journyx products, I'm always happy to hear from customers. Please feel free to shoot me your questions and ideas. And if you want to talk in person, I'll be happy to schedule some time. So thanks again so much for hanging out. And I think we'll go ahead and turn the floor over for questions.
Thank you, Meredith. Yes, if you have any questions, go ahead about the roadmap, about how to participate, as Meredith was just showing you in different aspects of developing Journyx, then please go ahead and ask those, put those in the questions box. We have one question so far before we start to wrap up. Will the compliance report be modified to include timesheets done through project approvals?
That is a good question, and definitely not the first time I've heard it. It is on the roadmap currently, but it has not been slated for a release. I believe we will evaluate it for November, but I can't say for certain yet if it will be. It should be available in the next several releases, but it has not been prioritized for a specific release yet.
Okay, great. And our next question, really interesting one. Last this person heard, Journyx was going to release for Dynamics Business Central in January 2020 with bugs worked out by the end of Q1. And so they're moving to Business Central. This is very important. So do you want to give a really quick update on that, Meredith?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we are actually testing BC right now. So no, BC was not November. I apologize if you got that impression. FO is actually going to be in the works by November based on the plan, but BC will be complete. And in terms of what, the product launch and all of that sort of thing, we're looking at March, but it will be available for testing prior to that. So it really is almost ready right now. So very soon, very soon.